Well, hi folks, meteorologist Michael Wilhite here with Southern Indiana Weather. Thanks for logging on here to my latest long-range update. Well, some changes in store here from what we have seen, the last few days. Boy, it's been kind of a torch fest, and we've seen temperatures in the 70s and 80s, though Thursday we had some nice rain move through. Not everybody got as much rain as we would have liked, unfortunately, but beneficial rains certainly nonetheless, no matter what you ended up getting. We needed it very badly, and of course that knocked some temperatures back down too. In fact, it's going to be a pretty cool Friday on the way here, with temperatures only not making it out of the 50s. So it's a little sort of a cooler regime with this. Don't look for it to stick around forever. It's going to get warmer again, but 80s, we'll have to see. We'll talk about that here in a minute possibly, but first off, let's look what's going on in the middle levels of the atmosphere here, folks. And there's the trough digging through. This is what's going to cause us to be sort of in this pattern. Now, if I can decide, if the thing decides to work, there we go. This is what's going to keep us in that pattern now. We're going to be right in the middle of that trough for a while, but notice behind it, there's another little bit of a warm-up on the way. There's a pretty big ridge coming out to the west. Moves over us for a little bit, but it doesn't last forever, because we get another system that moves in just right before Halloween, the way things look. This takes us into about Saturday, right about Saturday the 29th, as this is starting to dig in. And then, of course, we got another little system there that's sort of right behind it as well on the 2nd. Now, this is going to have sort of an up and down effect on our temperatures. If we take a look at where we're at right now, there's the warmth heading off to our east, and it's being replaced by the cooler weather. Cooler weather will stick around for a few days, but we do have some days here going to be above normal for a time, followed by some cooler, and then the warm starts to build back in, but it's quickly replaced by cool, and it's kind of an up and down pattern. But overall, as we head into this, it's going to be more cool to end the month than certainly what it was on the warm side. And of course, that was discussed, by the way, back at the end of September whenever I did my October outlook. That's one of the things that I discussed, that it's going to be pretty darn warm the first half of October, but we would have some pretty big storms systems move through probably the second half of October that would knock things down significantly more, and that's exactly what's ended up playing out now. So I do think we're going to see a much cooler regime. I think you can say goodbye to the 80s for the rest of the month. And could we see an 80 in November? I wouldn't rule it out, but it's going to be pretty hard to come by the later we go. We could be gone for the year with those, but I think we're certainly going to see some 70s if nothing else. We're still going to warm up. I think as we head into the the first week or so of November, we're going to see some warm up after that again. No question in my mind about that. But as we get later into November in the long range modeling, I do see some hints of some more significant cool down. In fact, the Euro Weeklies are suggesting by the third week of November as an all-out pattern flip to kind of a winter pattern. So we'll see. That's a long ways off into the future, but there are some hints of it certainly there in the modeling. You can see that, by the way, as we take a look at the rainfall. There's the rain that moved through here on Thursday. That's moving off, and it's going to become a pretty decent little storm system up here. In fact, notice there's some snow mixing in the higher elevations there around upstate New York. They could be looking at on some of the mountaintops 6 inches to a foot of snow. So that's a pretty powerful little early winter storm system there for them. Not for us, though. We're going to be high and dry with it. The next rain chance here really doesn't come for a few days. As we head into mid next week, we got a little system that moves through. Then we got a bigger system that approaches us here right around just right before Halloween. So this will take us here to about the 29th. That moves us through, pretty potent low. It doesn't look like it's going to be a major deluge of rain for us just yet. It certainly could if we were closer to the low. It's going to depend on how close we get to that. We'll have to see. Notice there's some snow wrapping around on the back side of the system. There's a sure sign that the seasons are changing. It's not for us yet. It's all rain. But notice this does usher some cooler air in. And then look at this. We got another system that's diving down here, a little clipper system, if you will. Here's the 31st. Here's Halloween. By the time you get into that night, it looks good for trick-or-treating right now, but later that night there's some rain that starts to dive in. And look at this. During the overnight hours of the 1st into the 2nd, this is hinting that, you see the blue here? This is the snow, and the green, of course, is the rain, the precipitation types. This is hinting that maybe some wet snowflakes could mix in with this. And if we look at temperatures by that time, Well, temperatures by that time in the upper 30s around the area, so that's certainly possible. If we can get below freezing in the upper levels of the atmosphere to turn it to snow, it would probably melt a little bit on the way down with temperatures this warm. So it would be a rain-snow mix, and of course it would be too warm to stick, even if it did anyway. But bear in mind, this is 300 hours out. All right, that's fantasy land in the models at this point. So don't look at this and say, "Oh, Michael's saying that it's going to snow on the 1st of November." I'm not saying that. I'm saying the models are hinting that there might be some things in there. Excuse me. And we'll keep an eye on that as time goes by. I wouldn't put any stock in this yet, but for you snow and winter lovers, it's a hint that things are coming. The cool down is going to start. One of these days, it's gonna flip, and we're gonna go into a much cooler regime than what we have seen. And there's some hints that's going to be on that way. Now, after this is all through, I do see a warm-up coming for us again. But again, by the time we get later into November, it looks like there's going to be more and more significant cool shots that are coming our way. All right, really quickly here, NOAA released the National Weather Service released their winter outlook. Of course, you'll remember I released my preliminary winter forecast really a long time ago, September 24th, so it's been almost a month now. You can go to southernindianaweather.com to find that, hover over winter, and then just click on preliminary winter forecast, and you'll be able to get a little bit of my thinking there. And of course, just to remind you, my thinking was that we would have a pretty slow start here to winter in December. We pretty much average with the warmer temperatures down to our south, core of the cold to the north. By the time we got into January, that's when those colder snaps and those storm systems would come our way with an active storm track. Well, here's what the National Weather Service is thinking, and they're actually suggesting here that the warmth goes right up to the line here of Indiana. They are suggesting that we are in the chances here for being a little bit on the wetter side, but they're suggesting here that we could be on the warmer side, or to near average to above normal is what they're suggesting for us. Do I buy that? No, I don't think we're going to be really above normal. If anything, at this point, I think they're a little too far off here. I think this cooler needs to expand down here a little bit, but it's a reasonable start. I don't think it's a 100% bad outlook. I do agree that it's going to be warmer down to the south, but this needs to be shrunk down and this needs to expand a little bit if you want my personal take on that. And of course, I already released these graphics there back on September 24th. This was my preliminary winter forecast. Now, a couple things have changed since then. The one thing that we need to discuss is that La Nina looks like it's going to be established. There were some questions back a month ago. Is La Nina going to be established or not? And the models was suggesting it was going to be a La Nada. It was going to be pretty much a neutral sort of a winter, but models have changed, and it looks like La Nina is going to become fairly established here as we go through. In fact, let me just show you a little bit of the data here. TropicalTidbits.com, if you want to do some of this research yourself, is a great site for this. Levi does a fantastic job with this site, but on this, all you got to do is go to TropicalTidbits.com. If you click on Analysis Tools here, you can click on Ocean Analysis, and this gives you some hints of where El Nino is. And so what this will do is it'll tell you there's your La Nina right here. You can see those cooler waters, and you can go back here and you can get a time series as well to see where it's been. Keep in mind, folks, the half-degree line right here, that is La Nina's threshold. So below that is considered La Nina. It's got to stay consecutively below that for 3 months at a time. So we're not really there yet. We've been mostly below that here since about the beginning of October. We're just slightly above that threshold line, but we're still within very cool waters at this, no doubt about it. So we're certainly, we're not spiking back up above normal again, but for the most part, all the way from, back here at the end of July, we were still here in cool waters for the most part. That certainly has an effect on this. And now what the modeling is suggesting to us is that La Nina is going to take hold potentially a little more. So here's the monthly values here that we've observed, and here's the modeling. These are all different models that you can read over the side if you really want to know this. These are all different plotted on here, but again, keep in mind the half-degree line here and the negative, that's the La Nina threshold. Plenty of them going through here as we head into DJF. That's December, January, February, February, March, April. So these values right in here, this is what we would see for our winter. Most of them in the La Nina threshold. a few of them above that, but the majority of them down here in with that. So it does look like we'll probably have a weak La Nina this winter, and a typical La Nina does keep the southern half of the country warm. The northern tier of it would be cold, and that's just something that we're going to have to see. It usually tends to keep us wet, dry as you head down into the south. This is, of course, a typical La Nina. What's a typical La Nina, though? The problem is this is averaging them out all over there, and every La Nina is a little bit different. So you do got to keep that in mind as things go on. But as far as what I'm expecting, a slow start to winter, of course, and then as we get in here to January, February, March, we'll start to get those occasional cold snaps become maybe a little bit more frequently. Do still think the persistent cold is going to stay up to our north. Now keep in mind, this was my preliminary winter forecast. My final winter forecast is going to be released on November the 5th, but because you are a loyal viewer, I'm going to give you a little hint at it tonight. First off, I got a nice new graphics package that I bought, and like the maps, I think it just does a lot better job than what this is, and a lot more workable here. But you notice I've kept things mostly the same. But there's something that we need to add in here because of that increased La Nina, and because we're going to be in the battle with the La Nina. I think we're going to have an active storm track, and of course that's something that I mentioned already, that I felt like we would have an active storm track right over the Ohio Valley here. Because of that, though, and because of the extra effects of the La Nina, that's going to put us in an ice, snow, or rain sort of battle zone here, all the way through most of Kentucky and into southern Indiana, from maybe I-70 on south, Indianapolis southwards, in other words. And so this is just the main change that I made to it. Your persistent cold, I think, is going to stay well to your north of southern Indiana here. I do expect occasional cold snaps to come in, mild and dry down to our south, warm and dry out to our west. But again, anywhere in blue, I think we're going to face some cooler than normal temperatures, or the potential for that at times. I don't think it's going to be below normal for us the entire winter long. I think we're going to be sort of a back and forth, and it's going to be these occasional cool snaps. But some of these cool snaps could be rather stout with them. La Ninas are known to bring a very active jet stream with them. So that could bring the potential for some bigger winter storms with it. But that also means, if you get those bigger winter storms, that if we're in that battle zone for where things are going to track, and what we've seen in the past whenever we sort of get these things here, is that we end up, with a storm track sort of like this, and that puts us for a couple of different ways and in different things. What I'm trying to say here, and I'm stumbling over my words, and I apologize here, but what I'm trying to say is, with the track so close to us, and we could end up being in rain or ice just as easily as a snow here in southern Indiana. We really could. And the reason why is because if you get a stronger storm track, more active because of the La Nina, the extra fuel to these storms, well, that's great. It delivers more precip to be able to work with to cause bigger snow events, and if you like snow, that's a good thing. However, it also delivers a stouter jet in the mid layers of the atmosphere with it. That can help to increase the southwest flow. That can help to increase our temperatures up there. And so we end up fighting a precipitation type battle here across the area. We've seen that plenty of times in winters past. So that's something that's, unfortunately, I think we're going to have to fight again. Now, come November the 5th, this is one of the graphics that I'm going to be using, but I've got much more that I'm going to be using. Come November the 5th, when I release my final winter forecast, I'm going to be showing you guys where I think the majority of the snow is going to fall, and exactly sort of what percentages I expect for us, where I think is going to get the snow jackpot. You can see I've drawn a little area here with the heavy lake effect snows up to the north. What do I think as far as our snowfall? What do I think as far as our temperatures? And many other things that you can expect. That all comes out on November the 5th. But again, because you've watched this video to the very end, you get a little hint, a little preview of it here tonight. Folks, that is it for this latest long-range update. Enjoy these cooler weathers while we have it. I'm meteorologist Michael Wilhite for SouthernIndianaWeather.com. Again, be sure to check back here on November the 5th for my updated and final